The silence inside the grand estate felt heavier than grief itself. Beneath towering crystal chandeliers, every member of the family sat with quiet anticipation, their eyes fixed on the lawyer standing beside the polished mahogany table. The late grandfather had built an empire from nothing, and today his fortune would be divided. No one noticed Anjuman standing quietly near the back of the room, after years of caring for the old man when everyone else was too busy chasing wealth. He believed this was the one day his loyalty might finally matter. The lawyer unfolded the will and began reading each name. One cousin inherited the seaside mansion, another received the luxury hotels. Expensive farmland, investment companies, rare artwork, and millions in cash were distributed one after another. Every announcement was followed by satisfied smiles and whispered congratulations. With each passing moment, Anjuman's heartbeat grew louder. Surely his grandfather had remembered the grandson who had never abandoned him. Then the lawyer hesitated. He frowned, reading the final paragraph twice before looking up with visible confusion. To my grandson, Anjuman, I leave the old wooden chest stored in the attic. A stunned silence swept across the room. Then came laughter. Mocking smiles spread from one face to another as someone joked that even the chest probably wasn't worth carrying home. Another relative laughed that the old man must have forgotten to finish the will. Even the lawyer struggled to hide his surprise. Anjuman felt every laugh like a blade. His face burned with humiliation, yet he refused to argue. With trembling hands, he accepted the dust-covered chest that two servants carefully placed before him. Its worn wood, rusted hinges, and faded carvings looked completely worthless beside the unimaginable fortune everyone else had received. Without another word, he lifted the heavy chest and walked toward the door. Behind him, the laughter continued to echo through the mansion. No one noticed the small brass emblem carved into its weathered lid, or realized that the greatest inheritance had just quietly left the room with the only man who never came searching for riches. Anjuman climbed the narrow stairs to his tiny rented apartment long after darkness had settled outside. The old wooden chest felt heavier with every step, not because of its weight, but because it was the only thing his grandfather had left him. He set it carefully on the worn floorboards and stood in silence. The laughter from the mansion still echoed in his mind, making the quiet room feel even smaller. A single lamp cast a warm glow across the dusty lid, revealing scratches and faded patterns that had gone unnoticed before. He wiped away years of dust with the sleeve of his shirt. Slowly, intricate carvings emerged from the wood, intertwined vines, tiny stars, and unusual symbols unlike anything he had seen in the family estate. At the center rested an unfamiliar brass crest. It was not the emblem displayed in the mansion or engraved on the family's documents. This crest belonged to someone, or something, that had been forgotten. Curiosity replaced disappointment. When he lifted the creaking lid, his hope faded once more. Inside were only brittle papers stained by age, an antique brass compass with a strangely restless needle, and a folded handwritten note. The handwriting was unmistakably his grandfather's, but the message ended abruptly in the middle of a sentence, as though the final page had disappeared years ago. There was no explanation, no fortune, and no reason why this chest had been chosen over everything else. Anjuman sighed and reached to close the lid. His fingers paused. The inside edge felt uneven. He tapped it gently. One section answered with a hollow sound, while the rest remained solid. Leaning closer, he traced the delicate carvings until his thumb rested on a tiny wooden flower hidden among the vines. It shifted almost imperceptibly beneath the pressure. A soft metallic click broke the silence. The bottom of the chest slid aside, revealing a secret compartment concealed so perfectly that generations had overlooked it. Holding his breath, Anjuman stared into the darkness, realizing the inheritance everyone mocked had only begun to reveal its true purpose. With trembling hands, Anjuman reached into the hidden compartment. A faint scent of aged parchment and cedar drifted into the room as he carefully lifted out its contents. The first item was a weathered map, its edges frayed and its surface covered with faded markings that looked more like riddles than directions. Beneath it rested several handwritten journal pages filled with strange symbols, dates, and coded sentences. At the very bottom lay a heavy brass key, cold to the touch. engraved with the very same unfamiliar crest carved onto the chest. His pulse quickened. The compass from the main compartment suddenly caught his attention. Its restless needle, which had refused to settle before, now pointed directly toward the brass key, as though the two objects belonged together. Nothing about this felt accidental. His grandfather had hidden these items with extraordinary care, waiting for someone patient enough to uncover them. Anjuman unfolded the first journal page. Much of the ink had faded, but several lines remained clear enough to read. The greatest inheritance was never meant for those who valued gold above family. Let greed blind them. Only the one who seeks truth instead of wealth will discover what was protected. He read the words again, feeling a chill spread across his skin. Suddenly, the humiliation at the mansion seemed less like rejection and more like a carefully planned test. His grandfather had never forgotten him. Every carving, every hidden latch, every mysterious object had been placed there deliberately, years before his passing. What Anjuman didn't know was that he was no longer alone. Across the street, a dark sedan sat beneath a flickering streetlight. Behind its tinted window, one of his jealous cousins lowered a pair of binoculars. He had secretly followed Anjuman from the estate, convinced the worthless chest concealed something valuable. Watching the apartment with growing suspicion, he reached for his phone and quietly whispered, "I was right. That chest is hiding something. Don't let him out of your sight." Anjuman barely slept that night. The journal's haunting words echoed through his thoughts as he spread the map, coded pages, brass key, and restless compass across his small table. Every clue seemed connected, yet the pattern remained just beyond his reach. As dawn crept through the window, he left briefly to buy coffee and make photocopies of the fragile documents, afraid the originals might crumble with every touch. When he returned less than an hour later, his heart stopped. The apartment door hung slightly open. He rushed inside. Drawers had been emptied onto the floor, cushions ripped apart, and shelves overturned. Someone had searched every corner with desperate urgency, yet nothing of value was missing. The television, laptop, and small envelope of savings were untouched. Only one thing had been disturbed. The wooden chest had been dragged halfway across the room, its lid forced open as if someone had tried to carry it away before being interrupted. A cold shiver ran through him. Whoever had broken in hadn't come for money, they had come for the chest. Later that afternoon, his phone rang from an unknown number. A calm voice spoke only one sentence: "Stop looking for what your grandfather buried, or you'll lose far more than your inheritance." The line went dead before he could answer. The warnings didn't end there. Within 2 days, relatives who had laughed at him during the reading of the will suddenly changed their tone. One cousin politely offered $50,000 for the old chest. Another increased the offer to $500,000 before sunset. By the following morning, a family lawyer arrived with paperwork and a blank check, insisting Anjuman could write any amount he wanted in exchange for the antique. Their sudden generosity made no sense. If the chest was truly worthless, why were they willing to spend fortunes to reclaim it? Standing alone in his damaged apartment, Anjuman rested his hand on the weathered lid. For the first time, he understood that the chest itself was never the treasure. It was the doorway to something so valuable that powerful people were willing to threaten, steal, and pay almost any price to keep its secret buried. The more Anjuman studied the map, the more he realized it was not a map in the ordinary sense. Thin lines connected distant locations like threads in a hidden story, while strange symbols matched the markings carved into the chest. His grandfather had not left directions to treasure. He had left a trail of memories, secrets, and truths waiting to be uncovered. The first clue led Anjuman to an abandoned family farmhouse, standing alone beyond miles of empty fields. Dust covered every surface, and silence filled the old rooms. Yet hidden inside a loose floorboard, he found another journal page wrapped carefully in cloth. It spoke of promises broken and wealth taken from those who had trusted the wrong people. The second clue brought him to a forgotten corner of an old library where records untouched for decades lay buried beneath fading documents. There, he discovered copies of property deeds, letters, and financial papers carrying familiar family names. Piece by piece, a troubling picture began to emerge. The final destination on the map led him to an old countryside warehouse that had once belonged to his grandfather. Time had nearly erased the building, but inside, concealed behind rusted shelves, Anjuman found a locked cabinet opened by the brass key. Within it rested bundles of carefully preserved files and handwritten notes spanning many years. As he read through them, disbelief turned to sorrow. His grandfather had secretly documented decades of corruption, betrayal, and stolen inheritances committed by trusted relatives. Properties had been taken through deception, legal papers altered, and rightful heirs quietly pushed aside. Some of the fortune his family proudly displayed had never truly belonged to them. Anjuman sat in the fading light, surrounded by old records and forgotten truths. The chest had led him far beyond hidden wealth. It was revealing the history his grandfather had spent a lifetime protecting. And somewhere within these secrets lay the answer to a question that had haunted him since the day of the will reading. What had his grandfather hidden that others feared so deeply? The final journal page pointed toward one place Anjuman had never expected to visit, the family's original ancestral estate. Long before the mansions and luxury businesses, this forgotten property had been the foundation of everything his grandfather built. Now it stood abandoned on the edge of the countryside, its cracked stone walls swallowed by climbing ivy and towering trees. Most of the buildings had collapsed, and the silence carried only the sound of wind moving through broken windows. The map guided him beyond the main house to an old storage building leaning dangerously to one side. Years of rain had rotted its wooden beams, and the floor sagged beneath every careful step. At first, it looked empty except for rusted tools and shattered crates. Then the brass compass spun wildly before settling toward the center of the room. Remembering the strange symbols carved inside the chest, Anjuman searched the floor until he found the same forgotten crest etched into a weathered stone slab hidden beneath layers of dirt. He inserted the brass key into a narrow opening beside the carving and turned it slowly. A deep grinding sound echoed beneath his feet. The heavy slab shifted, releasing a cloud of stale air untouched for generations. Beneath it, a narrow stone staircase disappeared into darkness. The passage had been sealed so perfectly that no one could have discovered it by accident. Holding a lantern, Anjuman descended carefully. Every step revealed ancient stone walls marked with the same symbols that had guided him from the very beginning. This was no hiding place built in haste. It had been designed with patience, purpose, and extraordinary precision. At that moment, one truth became impossible to ignore. The chest had never been the inheritance. It had been the key to an extraordinary journey created to test the character of the person who received it. Every clue demanded patience instead of greed, wisdom instead of haste, and courage instead of fear. As the darkness stretched deeper ahead, Anjuman realized the greatest secret of his family's history was waiting somewhere beneath the forgotten estate, and he was closer than anyone had ever been. Anjuman emerged from the hidden passage with more questions than answers, but he was no longer the only one chasing the truth. By the next morning, legal notices began arriving at his apartment. Family lawyers claimed the ancestral estate belonged jointly to every surviving heir and demanded he surrender everything he had discovered. They insisted the old chest, the journals, and every document inside the passage were family property. It was obvious they were trying to stop him before he uncovered something they could no longer control. The pressure intensified with every passing day. Strangers appeared wherever he went. A black SUV waited outside his apartment for hours. Unknown men watched him from cafes and gas stations, pretending to read newspapers while secretly photographing every move. Even the old warehouse had fresh footprints leading away from the hidden cabinet, proving someone had searched it after his visit. Then the attacks became personal. One evening, as Anjuman returned to the ancestral estate carrying copies of the journal pages, two masked men stepped from behind the crumbling storage building. Without a word, they lunged toward him, demanding the map and brass key. He fought back with desperate determination, clutching the leather satchel against his chest. During the struggle, one attacker slipped on loose stones, giving Anjuman just enough time to escape into the underground passage before the heavy stone entrance sealed itself behind him. Breathing heavily in the darkness, he realized this was no longer a battle over money. Someone was willing to use violence to bury his grandfather's secret forever. As he gathered himself, a loud explosion echoed from above. Dust rained from the ancient ceiling, and chunks of stone crashed onto the staircase. The attackers were trying to destroy the entrance itself. If the chamber collapsed, generations of hidden evidence would vanish beneath the earth forever. With trembling hands and a racing heart, Anjuman tightened his grip on the brass key and hurried deeper into the tunnel. Time was no longer on his side, and every step forward might be his only chance to reveal the truth before it disappeared forever. The deeper Anjuman ventured into the underground passage, the older the world around him seemed to become. The rough stone walls gradually gave way to carefully carved corridors illuminated by narrow shafts of light filtering through hidden vents above. Every surface carried the same ancient crest engraved on the wooden chest, reminding him that his grandfather had planned every step of this journey long before anyone gathered to hear the will. The tunnel finally ended before an enormous circular stone door, unlike anything he had ever seen. Set into its center were 3 intricate mechanical locks. One matched the shape of the brass key. Another was surrounded by engraved compass markings pointing in every direction. The third displayed rows of mysterious symbols identical to those scattered across the coded journal pages. Anjuman took a slow breath. He inserted the brass key into the first lock. A deep metallic click echoed through the chamber. Next, he placed the antique compass into the circular engraving. As its restless needle finally settled, he carefully rotated the stone ring until north aligned perfectly with the faded markings on the map. The second mechanism unlocked with a heavy rumble. Only the coded symbols remained. Hours passed as he compared every journal page, remembering countless evenings when his grandfather had challenged him with riddles instead of easy answers. Back then, they had seemed like simple games. Now he realized every lesson had been preparing him for this exact moment. One by one, he pressed the correct symbols into the ancient stone. The final lock released. Before the massive door could open, a hidden panel slid aside, revealing one last handwritten message. If you are reading these words, you have already proven what others never could. Wealth belongs to those who protect others, not those who seek to possess them. Blood may create a family, but character creates an heir. Tears filled Anjuman's eyes as the enormous stone door slowly began to move. At last, he understood why his grandfather had trusted only him with the family's greatest inheritance. The ancient stone door groaned as centuries of silence gave way to a secret that had waited for the right person. Dust drifted through the air while the narrow opening widened inch by inch, revealing a vast chamber untouched by time. Anjuman stepped inside with cautious disbelief, his lantern casting golden light across walls lined with iron shelves and enormous wooden chests bound in black steel. He slowly lifted the lid of the nearest chest. Rows of perfectly stacked gold bars reflected the light with a warm glow that filled the chamber. Another chest held velvet bags overflowing with rare gold and silver coins collected over generations. Glass cabinets displayed priceless heirlooms, antique jewelry, historical artifacts, and gemstones that sparkled as though they had been hidden only yesterday. Every corner of the vault spoke of unimaginable wealth preserved with extraordinary care. Yet it was not the treasure that captured Anjuman's attention. On a long oak table rested dozens of sealed leather portfolios marked with the same forgotten family crest. He carefully opened the first file and found investment certificates, original land deeds, company ownership papers, and international bank records. Their combined value reached hundreds of millions of dollars, but one discovery eclipsed even that staggering fortune. Beneath the financial documents lay a collection of legally authenticated records signed decades earlier by judges, government officials, and respected witnesses. As Anjuman read through each page, the painful truth finally emerged. The wealth his relatives proudly claimed had never truly belonged to them. Through forged agreements, manipulated wills, and fraudulent transfers, Anjuman's own branch of the family had been systematically stripped of its rightful inheritance. His grandfather had secretly gathered undeniable proof, knowing that revealing it too soon would only allow the guilty to destroy it. Everything suddenly made sense. The old wooden chest had never been a consolation prize. It had been the only safe path to protect both the hidden fortune and the evidence needed to restore justice. Greed had blinded everyone else. They had chased visible riches while ignoring the one inheritance that required patience, honesty, and unwavering faith. Standing in the heart of the silent vault, surrounded by treasures beyond imagination, and documents capable of changing his family's history forever, Anjuman realized he had discovered something far greater than wealth. He had found the truth. The morning Anjuman walked into the courthouse, he carried no gold bars or priceless heirlooms. Instead, he held several weathered leather portfolios, the evidence his grandfather had protected for decades. Every document had been carefully authenticated, every signature verified, and every financial record connected to a chain of deception that stretched back generations. For the first time, the truth was no longer buried beneath stone. It stood ready to face the light. The courtroom remained silent as Anjuman's legal team presented the original property deeds, hidden investment records, and certified documents proving that much of the family's celebrated fortune had been obtained through fraud. One by one, experts confirmed forged signatures, illegal transfers, and fabricated inheritance claims. The evidence was so overwhelming that even the relatives who had once laughed at him could no longer deny what had happened. News spread quickly. Television reporters gathered outside the courthouse, while newspapers revealed the scandal that had remained hidden for decades. Business partners withdrew their support from the corrupt heirs, investigators reopened forgotten financial cases, and authorities seized properties obtained through deception. The empire built on lies began collapsing before the entire country. Anjuman watched quietly as the same relatives who had mocked him during the reading of the will lowered their eyes in shame. Their confidence had vanished, replaced by fear and regret. The courtroom that once would have ignored his voice now recognized him as the rightful heir to the wealth stolen from his branch of the family. When the judge delivered the final ruling, justice arrived with unmistakable clarity. Ownership of the hidden assets and disputed properties was legally restored to Anjuman, while those responsible for years of fraud faced criminal investigations and financial penalties. His grandfather's carefully crafted plan had worked exactly as intended. Instead of handing wealth directly to the greedy, he had entrusted it to the one person willing to earn it through patience, integrity, and courage. As Anjuman stepped outside into the bright afternoon sun, he felt something even greater than victory. After a lifetime of being overlooked, the truth had finally spoken louder than power, wealth, or bloodline. Months passed, and the abandoned ancestral estate slowly came back to life. Where broken windows had once reflected years of neglect, sunlight now poured through restored glass. The cracked stone walls were carefully rebuilt, the overgrown gardens bloomed again, and the silent halls echoed with the sound of workers, visitors, and children instead of loneliness. Every corner of the property carried the spirit of renewal rather than the bitterness of the past. Many expected Anjuman to spend his newfound fortune on luxury cars, private islands, and extravagant mansions. After everything he had endured, no one would have blamed him, but wealth had never been the dream that guided him. The lessons hidden inside his grandfather's journals had changed him forever. Instead of chasing revenge, he established scholarships for students whose families could not afford an education. Community programs were created to support struggling families, preserve local history, and provide opportunities for young entrepreneurs. A charitable foundation bearing his grandfather's name quietly funded hospitals, libraries, and restoration projects across the region. Every decision honored the man who had believed character was worth more than any fortune. Visitors soon traveled from far away to see the restored estate and learn the remarkable story behind it. Displayed inside the entrance hall, protected by glass yet left exactly as it had been found, stood the old wooden chest. The same chest that had been mocked during the reading of the will had become the estate's most treasured possession. People no longer saw it as an ordinary box. They saw it as a reminder that appearances often conceal extraordinary truths and that the greatest rewards belong to those who refuse to let greed shape their hearts. Standing quietly before the chest one evening, Anjuman smiled with gratitude. His grandfather had not simply left him an inheritance. He had entrusted him with a legacy built on honesty, compassion, and courage. A legacy that would continue changing lives long after both of them were gone. Golden evening light poured through the tall windows of the restored ancestral estate, casting a warm glow across the polished wooden floors. Laughter and quiet conversation filled the halls as visitors admired the home that had once stood abandoned and forgotten. Every restored room told a story of resilience, sacrifice, and hope. Yet for Anjuman, the greatest treasure in the entire estate was neither the priceless artifacts nor the fortune that had changed his life. With gentle hands, he carried the old wooden chest into the estate's central gallery and placed it upon a handcrafted pedestal beneath his grandfather's portrait. The scratches, faded carvings, and worn brass crest remained untouched, preserving every mark of its remarkable journey. Standing before it, Anjuman smiled softly as memories flooded back. The humiliation at the will reading, the lonely apartment, the hidden compartment, the underground passage, and the truth that had restored his family's honor. He finally understood. If he had received the wealth everyone expected, he would never have discovered the legacy his grandfather truly intended to leave behind. Losing his birthright had become the only path toward finding his real inheritance. As the last visitors slowly departed and silence settled over the estate once again, Anjuman gently rested his hand on the chest one final time. His fingers brushed against the false bottom almost absent-mindedly. Something shifted. A tiny yellowed envelope, no larger than the palm of his hand, slipped quietly from a hidden space beneath the compartment and landed softly on the wooden pedestal. There was no name on the front, only the familiar brass crest embossed in faded wax. Anjuman stared at it without moving, his heartbeat quickening as countless possibilities raced through his mind. A final letter, another map, one last lesson. He smiled, leaving the mysterious envelope unopened. Some treasures, he realized, were meant to inspire curiosity long before they revealed their secrets. And somewhere inside that forgotten envelope, his grandfather's final mystery was still waiting.